All right, so we're going to take a look at another way of creating textures, which are the images that go inside of those materials that we created. And we're going to be using Quixel Mixer. So make sure to click on sign in with your Epic account here. And once you sign in, you go to products and then go to Mixer and then just download Mixer. And it says, what do you want to do with it? I'm just going to save it. I mean, I think I've already got a couple copies of this thing going. I'll save it out here. And let's just go ahead and double click it and install Quixel Mixer. So pretty easy install. I'll just walk you through it really quick. I just click next a bunch of times. Now the thing is, I just grabbed the latest material. If you don't have a lot of room on your hard drive for this, I would install it, but maybe, like move the smart pack to a flash drive or something. You could see I've got pretty good space on my computer. Just going to click next a bunch of times to get all this stuff installed and then hit next. And then I'm going to pause the video and let this install. Now that that's installed, go ahead and just hit finish and let that install itself. And then once it opens, you'll get something that looks like this. Let's bring that back. You get something that looks like this, prompting you to sign in with your Epic Games account. Go ahead and click on that and sign in. All right, so once you sign in, we are in Quixel Mixer. Go ahead and click on New Mix. And for Untitled here, we'll call this Chair. I'm going to provide you with a chair model. We'll do 2048. If you have a weaker computer, you might want to go with a 512 or 1024. I'll go with 2048. Weaker being like systems parameters. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And you can see right off the bat, there's a report. There's our local library. Now, this is all of those smart materials that we downloaded, that Smart Pack 7, as well as the smart materials that come standard. Then there's the online stuff that you can pull down that we had talked about kind of before from Quixel Bridge. If we go back to our viewport here, you can see there's different things. There's like select preview mesh, plane, cube, sphere. These are different things you could play with. And here's like PBR materials. We're going to get into this in a second, but this is how we can look at each material individually. So let's go ahead and bring in that chair. So I'm going to go from plane here down to custom model. And what I did is just navigated to essentially where my chair is. So I'm going to double click that. And now you can see we have our chair model in here. And again, this is the same one I'm going to provide you with. So just like in Photoshop, if you're familiar with it, you can go to layers here. And inside of here, you can create separate layers, like a surface layer, add a decal layer, things like that. So for example, if we click this first one, you can see we can add a surface, which one of these as a base for our chair. So if I double click this, it added rosewood, and now it added a rosewood texture to our chair. We can also right click on it and hit delete layer if your regular delete doesn't work. You can see there's also this add decal layer, smart material, solid layer. Solid layer is just sort of like a solid color. So if I select albedo, for example, and you can see there's normal, opacity, all this stuff, the contrast of that gray. I can also sample a color. Like I can change the color of this thing to maybe brown. Say you're doing like a cartoony game and I hit apply. And it applied that as a layer here. And we could name this like color layer by double clicking it. You can also kind of blend or go between layers. Also, just a kind of navigation, I can zoom in with my wheel on my mouse. If I click my middle wheel in, I can pan. If I hold Alt and left click, I can rotate. And just overall, like you can see here, I'm going to add a solid layer on top. And let's say we make this color layer here. I'm going to click that dot. We want to make this like red, okay? So we have red on top of brown. And you can actually go down here and you see where it says mask here? Paint a mask. If I click on that, this mask is essentially white. And if I start to paint in here, what I'm doing is I'm painting black across the surface. So I'm exposing essentially, and it's good to get a tablet if you really are enjoying this class and liking and want to get into games or 3D stuff. But what I'm actually doing is exposing this color layer down here. Let's go with something a little bit stronger so you can see the difference. Maybe this blue. So with a mask, just like in Photoshop, I can expose the layer below it. So let's click on this mask layer here so I can bring that back. And same thing, you can also do multiple, right? Like we can click on this and say, you know what, this chair is made of grass here. and I can add a mask to that layer. If I hold Alt and click, it made it completely black. And so what happens here is, as I paint on this layer here, it'll start to expose the grass because it's on the top layer. And let's change the value here to a white so I can show you how to do that. And now as I paint, you can see it's exposing that grass on top of that chair. So say there's a chair, it's been outside for a while, and maybe mold starts to grow or moss starts to grow on that chair. Now what's cool about this brush is you can actually adjust the size. See how big I made it? Or you can make it very small, and you could do some really nice fine details. As you paint across it, you can adjust the angle of your brush, the spacing. So it starts to, as I'm drawing, it gives me a space. If you leave the space at 1, it gives you a clear line. So let's say we want to export this. So up at the top from layers to export, we want to bring this into Unreal. Now really the only thing I have is I want the normal, which is the bump information. We don't really have any specularity or ambient occlusion. So I'm going to remove this. I'm going to remove the metallic. I'm going to remove this, the displacement. I really only want a texture for normal and albedo, those two. And I also want to export this model. Now what I'm going to do is I'm not going to, well, I guess we could create a subfolder, but we're going to do export as custom, and we'll do open folder after export. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Unreal really quickly, and I'm going to just kind of open my content drawer here, and I'm going to just create a new folder here under content, and let's see, I'm going to call this folder, let's see, right click on that, go to new folder. I'm going to call this models, and this is just going to be my custom models. I'm going to right click on this folder here, and I'm going to do show in Explorer. Now what I want to do with this models folder is I'm going to right click on it, and I'm going to go show more options. This is for Windows 11. Send to desktop, create shortcut. Now if you're on a Mac, I'm not exactly sure how to do this. You're going to have to just drag the model in from wherever the export is. So what I mean by that is when I go ahead and I click on this, let's go to 2048 here, and let's see, we went to export location. I'm just going to, you know what, because many of you are probably on a Mac and not a PC, I'm just going to export it to this wooden chair folder. So I'm going to select that as my folder. Otherwise, you could just click on that folder that we created a shortcut if you're on a PC, and then you could just hit export to disk, and this will bring it right into your Unreal project. And now you can see here's our 3 files. So what I'm going to do is just grab these 3 files, and I'm going to go to Unreal now, and I'm going to drag them into this folder. Now the thing is, you get this pop-up here, and the default properties are fine, unless you have a character with a skeletal, which you would check this on. But you don't have that, and really, so for now, just kind of accept this, and then let's see under Advanced here. I think we don't have a Mesh LED group. Actually, let me check if there's any material stuff. Combined meshes. We could do combined meshes so that it's one chair, and right now it's off, so let's do that. It should be one chair anyway, but just to be safe, and I'm gonna hit import all. All right, you can see that it was successful. I'm gonna hit OK here. And what happened is inside of our content models folder here in our content browser, we now have a chair. So I'm gonna close this, and let's go ahead and let's see, hit Control Space, and let's just dock and layout. And I'm going to grab this chair and place it in our scene. Now the material isn't set up yet. You can see it has its named default material here. So what I can do is I can right click, and just to be safe, go to create material, and I'm going to call this M_chair. And I'm going to drag this onto our chair model here. And then I'm going to open this up, and let's take a look at how we can set up that texture that we created. So we have really this chair albedo, and then we have this normal map. So I'm going to expand this out and find my results node, and I'm just going to grab this material and just drop it in there, and I'm going to connect it to our base color here, and then hit save. And now you should see that it looks a lot like it does in Mixer. Now it doesn't have the bump information, so we need to grab our normal map here, and I'm going to connect that to normal map here, and I'm going to hit save. And you can see now we get a little bit more height information. I'm going to hit F to focus. And there you go. We painted a chair Just kind of like learning how to use Mixer. I'm going to hold Alt, duplicate this a few times. Now you can see we have a couple chairs going on. So, yeah. And honestly, if you go back into Mixer now and you're like, well, I don't like that, you could make a variation where you're like, this is kind of ugly. So I'm just going to hit delete a few times and I'm just going to grab a surface layout and I'll grab a wooden veneer and drop it on there if you just want a general chair. And then you could say, you know what, I'm going to, let's see, maybe add another smart material and I want to add some, let's see, what do we got here? Scratchy veneer. I'll add that to the top of it. You could see it has all this stuff on top of it. And you could also control the opacity of that, bring it down a little bit, and you're sort of blending between materials. Really, that's about it for Mixer for now. I'll do an advanced section where we do like a really nice chair with dusts and scratches and cracks and maybe your name carved in there or something. But for now, we're just kind of getting through all the different tools that you can use when you're building out your environment. So that's it for this short overview of Mixer.